welcome to another Simon Says on behalf of Deane Motors. You're with us here on the side of a lay-by petrol station in Germany. We're just about to join the Autobahn. We've just bought this 1987 Mercedes 500 SEC. When usually this is a high compression engine with no catalytic converter, so it actually drives properly quick. I'm just going to give you a few details about the car. Bear in mind the car hasn't been prepped. I've just picked it up. We're only starting the journey. So I'll walk you around the car now. It's a 1987 car. It's a late 87 car, which means it has the higher brake horsepower engine. It's also a Phase 2 Series 2 model, which has the different wheels, different body coloured stuff on the inside. The interior is slightly changed. It's a nice car. I love the colour combination, to be honest. I've always liked this colour. I'm only going to show you a few bits on the inside. Again, like I said, the car hasn't been fully prepped. It's in really nice condition. Seats in fantastic. They're also the multi-contour seats. So over here they're based on a vacuum system which pulls the bolsters in beside and also gives you rear lumbar support. Seats in the back are also in excellent condition. These are a proper 2+2. The only thing is long distance, anyone over 6 foot really wouldn't do well over a long distance. So the engine that they're using in this is the M117. It's the code name for it. It's a very cool code name. This is a 5-litre V8 single distributor, but it has mechanical electronic fuel injection. So it's the Bosch KE Jetronic is on it. It also has normal electronic ignition. It's a very clean car. Condition wise it's excellent. We had a look here, no structural damage, anything like it. Engine isn't weeping any oil. A couple of things to note on these cars. Timing chains do give issues in these cars. You'll know when you start it up, you get a very rattly noise. Like, it's immediate. Because low oil pressure at the start, if this engine is any bit noisy, you're going to need a timing chain. But apart from that, the engines are bomb-proof. They literally could do 250,000 miles without any major stuff being done apart from the chain. Gearbox as well is a 4-speed gearbox. I said it's similarly used in the Porsche 928. Porsche actually have the gearbox. They took it from Mercedes. No, look, it's a nice, clean, honest car. This model is the predecessor to the 116, and it's the first proper coupe with a big engine that Mercedes had. The 116 had the famous 6.9 litre, the 450 6.9. We have one of those in stock at the moment. But this car literally performs as well as it. The idea by Bruno Sacco, the guy who designed the car, was to make a car that was more aerodynamically good. It has a drag coefficient of only 0.36, but on top of that, it actually handles good. 450 6.9, it handles like a dog. At 120 mile an hour, you know you're doing 120 mile an hour. I'm just going to keep it sort of short and sweet here. When we pick up on the road, we'll pick up there. Hopefully down the Autobahn we can show you what the car drives like. So you're joining us now. We picked up the car in Hamburg. We're just after getting onto the Autobahn. Tipping along nicely at about 100 mile an hour here. We're heading down towards the Netherlands and then on towards Antwerp, and we're going to stay the evening in Bruges. We're doing really what this car does best at the moment. These were built for driving seriously long distances at high speeds. It's really, Autobahn is what this car is really made for. I don't know whether you can notice from the camera, but I'm sweating profusely, and the reason for that is the air conditioning in the car isn't working, and it's only just a shade over 34 degrees at the moment. So for the visual impact, and so we don't have to listen to the sound of the wind going by at 100 mile an hour, I'm cremating myself for this video. A little bit more about the car. It's a 1987 car. This is the later model, as in a Series 2, but interestingly enough, this is the higher compression 5-litre engine in it. 271 brake horsepower, roughly maybe 405 foot-pounds of torque. So it's kind of effortless. You don't really need to kick down to pull away at speed. It just sort of pulls along really easily. I'll show you images of the Speedo later, but they're dotted out because it's an automatic car. This is a 4-speed automatic. Same gearbox was used in the Porsche 928 of the era, but if you look on the dash clock, second mile an hour brings you to 80 mile an hour, third gear brings you to 140 mile an hour, and then it kicks into fourth. So fourth is really an overdrive in it. There's no real point talking about fuel consumption, because if you buy a car like this, if you're worried about fuel consumption, this is definitely the wrong car for you. Cabin noise is very, very good. For a car that's 30 years old, there isn't a huge amount of wind noise. I'm not sure whether the camera can pick that up, but it's very quiet. This car also has, because it's after 85, this car has a safety feature of a prehistoric airbag. They used crash sensors earlier in the day. It was more to do with, they aren't as sophisticated as the impact sensors that we have now, but it is nice to know that this car actually does have an airbag. So we're roughly about 350 miles into the trip. We're on the sort of last run in before we hit the Netherlands. So if you zoom in on the clock here, we're on a little bit of Autobahn. So what I was saying was, we're just tipping along here at 100 miles an hour. It's a bit of a kick down, just to show you what the acceleration is like in this. Bear in mind, it's a 30-year-old car, so everything in this car is just torque. So it just keeps pulling. Unfortunately, we have a car that just pulled out in front of us there. But it's just kind of effortless. As I was explaining earlier on, if you look in on the clock here, the dots signify what gear the gear changes are in. The 1 dot is first gear, second dot second gear. But I'm sitting along here just tipping over 100 mile an hour, and I'm on a quarter throttle. It's really that easy. Just kick down and it just pulls. That is something that I love about Mercedes from this era. It's all just torque based. Cars of this era are, like, when I think of different comparisons at the time, you had the BMW, the 635. Again, a really, really good car. But the 3.5 litre engines, they gave camshaft issues. They gave oil starvation problems to the back of the engine. They didn't have an engine like these did. You had the XJS, the V12, again, a really, really great car. I've sold loads of them. But for a build quality and standpoint, there is nothing like a Merc. But here we are here, we're just tipping down now, nearly doing 140 mile an hour, and it's effortless. All the brakes in this car have been replaced as well. There's all new discs and pads. Just gonna let off here, but it pulls up really, really nicely. It feels stable. It feels like a modern car, but at the same time, the way it utilizes 260 brake because of all the torque, it just makes it so effortless. So we're just at a filling station just outside Antwerp now. Covered roughly around 420 miles so far. I'm going to run the car on 98 octane fuel now. I ran it at 95 earlier, and I kind of figured we're only doing about 14 to 15 miles to the gallon. But in all fairness, we did have a couple of quick runs. Good few times we were over 140 mile an hour, so we have been pushing on. To note, engine in the car is really, really, really good in the sense of the car is actually idling too low. It's only idling at around 450 RPM. It should be really around 650, 700. The oil pressure is still 1.5 bar. When you put it into neutral, the car is still idling too low and at 2 bars solid. When the oil is roasting hot after doing a really, really good run. Cars are overheated once, water temperature is really good. We're still absolutely sweating our ass off in the car, I'm not gonna lie. Sort of 36 degrees now still, and it's kind of 6 o'clock. It's 7:15 in the evening, so we're baked. But the car's been very, very comfortable on the whole. There's been no problems. Had a couple of dices with a couple of cars, which was nice, but it's been good. It's been uneventful. A little bit of rain in between. Roads got a little bit dangerous. I want to see how much fuel it actually takes. And I want to see whether the 98 octane fuel makes any difference. For anyone who cares about sort of older cars, some cars run on lead additive, but it's the ethanol in the fuel now which actually damages them. So try and stay away from any ethanol related fuels or any ones that boost any of that sort of stuff, because the older cars really can't cope with it because of the extra heat. It's been fine, there's been no problems at all. So about 60 litres we put in. We weren't nearly empty there, which wasn't too bad. So get back on the road, see we get on. Maybe a little bit slower driving along the way, and I'll talk to you later. So we're just coming into Bruges now. Been in the car about 7 hours, covered a little over 400 miles. Car drives exactly like you want it to drive. We've done a mixture of routes. We've been on A roads, B roads, also motorways, but all I can say is after being in the car so long, I'm still very comfortable. The seats are very comfortable. My back feels good, it feels fresh. I've had no errors, no faults, nothing with the car yet. You have to remember it, this is a 30-year-old car, so you expect issues. It's not a modern car and we're asking it to do modern things, go and drive 1250 miles, but it's just been perfect today. I can't fault it at all. The gearbox is performing lovely, it changes up and down. I forgot to mention earlier, there's an unusual system. It was a new thing back in the day. Mercedes put in a topographical sensor is what they call it, and it measures the car on inclines and declines. It backs off the throttle for you and also holds you on hills. So like for the day, it was really advanced car. I'm gonna pull into the hotel up here. Bruges is one of those bucket list places that I've wanted to go. Unfortunately, I had to take my brother-in-law to bring me. Didn't get to bring anyone nice looking, unfortunately. Just outside the hotel now. Can't give you any more historical facts on Bruges apart from Colin Farrell was here once, I think, in a movie called In Bruges. Don't know whether you've seen it or not. You know your man from Phone Box?
Okay, now you're rambling.
Yeah. Good morning from sunny Bruges, where it's 11:15 and it's very hot already. If I don't look 2 and 2s, it's because I'm a little bit hungover, I'm not gonna lie. So there is a little bit of benefit going on these trips. You get to see these nice places, but I drank the Gar last night, beer, 11%. And I also lost my phone. So it's been a very successful morning so far. Just a couple of things before we crack off. I always check levels. People who don't know anything about that, just very simply, I just want to check and make sure that the water level is still okay, which it is. I've already dipped the oil, again, dipstick. You just want a general check over. Again, we're going to do about another 600 miles today, maybe a little bit more. You're just checking for any major leaks. You're making sure all your belts are tight. And I mean, it's a real visual check. Make sure nothing is untoward, really. We've got a 2-hour drive down to the Eurotunnel. We'll probably get back on the camera then, should I get getting into the train and that sort of stuff. And then we're heading on up to Brighton to buy a car for another customer. So we'll see you back en route. So we're just in Calais now, just about to board the Eurotunnel. The tunnel was delayed for 30 minutes or so, so I was sitting there kind of, I left the car running just to have a good test on it. Oil pressure is still bang on. The temperature is only about 90 degrees, so again, it's a very usable car in a sense of, I mean, if you have a look at the temperature gauge here, the outside temperature is reading 37.5 degrees, so we're, for want of a better word, we're melting in the car at the moment. And the fact that the climate control isn't working is, it's depressing. So we've only about another 10 hours to drive once we get off to head back to Dublin. So I'm dying for the night would be the only way I'd put it. Bit of an update on the phone situation. I'm ashamed to say that I actually left the hotel after going down and accusing the place of robbing the phone on us. So yeah, no, I think compiled with the heat, the hangover, it's not great, I'm gonna be honest. But at least I found the phone, so if anyone's looking for me, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm just about to get onto the train now for anyone who hasn't been on it. You have a look inside there. You literally drive onto the train and through it. Le Châtel. I really, 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 really hope they have air conditioning. Give you two different size of cabins in here. So if you have a car that has a wide track, if you're in a Ferrari or a Porsche or anything with really, really low profile tyres, you can go in a truck cabin. They don't have these walkways through the side of them. You don't really have to worry about this car because the sidewalls are so high in the tyres anyway that you really wouldn't be worried about checking your rims or anything like that. So, just in Brighton now, we're after picking up this 2014 C-Class Coupe. It's a 220, but it's a Premium Plus, so it comes with loads of extras and all that sort of stuff. There's a full pan roof with a sat-nav, reversing cameras. It's the AMG pack as well. But most importantly, excuse the language, this fucking car has air conditioning. And I'm not going to be driving it, unfortunately. So the heroic Merc is still driving along really well over here. We're going to hit the road, head up towards Birmingham and go to one of my favourite restaurants, the Checkers Inn. I always hit there on the way back if I'm going to be catching a late ferry. So probably reckon we'll get back to Dublin about 5 or 6 in the morning. Going to try for the 2 o'clock ferry. So I'll catch you on up the road. Day 3. We were meant to get home last night, but every single ferry going out of Holyhead was booked, so we're still in Birmingham and we're on our way up to Holyhead now for the 2 o'clock sailing. Supposedly it's the hottest day ever on record in the UK, and it's 9:30 in the morning and it's 27 degrees. So I'm feeling the pinch already. The man over there in that car isn't feeling the pinch. Air conditioning. It hasn't been all plain sailing. Car's driven great, but all of a sudden yesterday the car decided that it didn't want to start hot. So I could literally sit here for a minute for it turning over once the car started. I think it's a fuel pump issue. Usually the fuel pumps hold pressure up at the system, but a cold start is absolutely perfect. So what happens is you've cold start injectors plus the fuel, it's primed differently in the morning. So the car started up absolutely perfect this morning, but once you turn it off, leave it for 5-10 minutes, got to start, you could crank for 30 seconds before it starts, before the pressure builds up. But apart from that, the car's been absolutely perfect, apart from the air conditioning. Low speed driving is pretty good. Just gone through a small village here. I love the way it just wafts. I don't know whether you can see it if you see the rear window. They're a pillarless coupe, so when you have the windows down front and back, you have nothing, which is really part of the allure of this car when it came out back in the day. It sits really nice in traffic. It's very, very comfortable. So we've done probably nearly 1,000 miles now at this stage, and it's just, you're not regretting getting into the car. You're not feeling as if it's going to be carnage for the rest of the day. My legs are stuck to the seat though. Shorts was an option today, but yeah, no, when you're driving along, you have to S and E on the gearbox here. S is standard, usually lets the car take off in first, but if you're just cruising along normally, if you take off and you go to move, the car takes off in second gear unless you use the kick down button, which is fine, it's good. Take off in second, you sort of trundle along in third gear. I'm in third gear now at 800 revs, 25 mile an hour. So I love the way the rev band works in it. When you're up on the motorway and you're doing 70 mile an hour, you're doing 1800 RPM. So efficiency is definitely the key. Efficiency, 5 litre, no such thing. But they've geared the car really well. It pulls well in all gears. Interestingly enough, it was pretty high tech back in the day, this car, in the sense that it had crumple zones, it had airbags, pre-tensioners in the seat belts. So these were big things back then. It's hard to believe that this car is actually 10 kilograms heavier than the long wheelbase version. Reason for that being, when you have a pillarless coupe, you really have to do major structural stuff to the floors of the cars, which means the weight goes up. I can't give you an exact figure because majority of the time I can't remember my own name, but it's a heavy beast. It is very, very heavy. Gearbox is lovely, I have to say, for a 30-year-old gearbox. One thing you will notice if you're driving a car like these, Mercs of this generation, the accelerator pedal is heavy. It's really, really, really heavy. I nearly had a cramp in my leg yesterday because I've been in the car so long pushing it. It's just like a big lump of wood and you have to push it to make something happen. It's kind of a hard one to describe. When you get into a new car now, it's all fly-by-wire, but in this you're pulling a cable. Even when we're cruise control, again, prehistoric cruise control is in this car. So you set up the cruise control, and if you rest your foot near the throttle, you can feel the throttle moving all the time to adjust the speed. Like it's old school, it's pulling a lever, you know what I mean, cable, it's gas. Might be a few half decent roads up here. With all the new shocks and springs and everything that's in this car, I'm not going to pretend to you that it's a Ferrari or a Porsche and it just slides through the bends and everything's great, but you know, you can hit bends at solid speed in it, and it does. There's not a huge amount of roll. It's a completely different animal to the 116 model that came before it. You go into a bend in a 116 and you'd fall out the window, the car rolls so much. Little bit of a synopsis, and the car just pulled into Holyhead, and as usual caught on the ferry with the skin of our teeth. What I was saying earlier on, the traffic in the UK is muck. A trip that should have taken us 3.5 hours ended up nearly taking 5 hours. Synopsis on the car, it's awesome, really. By the time we have the car fully prepped and we do any little niggly bits, we don't really have a huge amount of quality stock, I find, in Ireland. I mean, that's why people go to the UK, but people tend to look after their stuff just a little bit better. I'm not sure what we're going to advertise the car at yet. I say it'll be between 17,000 to 18,000, depending on the amount of prep that we have to put into it. But what a car. There'd be nothing else I could compare. There's not a huge amount of cars I could have done the same trip in, the same comfort, loads of power. It's still understated. People still admire you in it. They don't think you're a dick, really, to be fair. Only downside was, again, the air conditioning kind of melting. But yeah, I hope you liked our first video. Anything that you think we should add to it or anything else that we should do, feel free to tell us. And it was great, and I hope you enjoy it.
Can you stand there?
Yeah.
Right,
thanks, man.